I would start by saying that our biggest issue with organisations is that we're always working with people, and people are difficult to quantify, herd, convince, etc. So the experience and the research tells us that senior management support is essential, as we've already heard tonight. That relationships are crucial. Change is most convincing when we can answer that question, what's in it for me? We also need to handle resistance. And I'm sure all of you know that many managers have great expertise in their fields, but not necessarily in the people in the change process. So that's one of the things that we try and help with, of course, all of us. The same issue is like convincing people, sitting at the table, getting managers to think strategically, how does this fit in with all the other stuff we're doing? All of those things are very, very common. I also wanted to ask, how often do we actually see this trust cycle? Whether it's a change in leader or a change in direction or a change in our budget, trust has sort of gone up and there's been a lot of work put in, and then suddenly something will happen and it drops back down again. So this is something that I observed just as an HR manager in a multinational IT organisation. Sometimes those changes were brought about because they wanted to change from centralised to decentralised and back again. Sometimes they were outside influences, like the arrival of Amazon would be an example for the retail industry. It's just like a massive change. Nokia to Apple. So we've got lots and lots of examples. So we know that leader-led change requires trust. That's something that we can establish, but it's also something we know from our own experience. We know relationships are crucial, as I said. We know that resistance is minimised when trust is present. So if you already have the trust of people, it's much easier to actually talk to them about change because they believe you when you say that they are going to still have a job, or that it is really important. So trust is important there. But also it seems to be more scarce, even though I would argue it's getting more important as we increase the level of change, the speed of change. And I'd also say that management through fear is still a common approach. And I think, again, Esther was sort of talking a little bit about that. Whether it be the fear of the manager themselves, or the fear of the unknown, or the fear of having to spend a lot of money and not get enough results, or whatever it is. And without getting into too much of the theory, I just wanted to say that I'm sort of assuming there's a lot of background knowledge. But I put Maslow's hierarchy of needs over here. We start with our physical safety and we work up to actually, our own self-actualization. I thought there was a nice kind of matching there with Lencioni's Dysfunctions of a Team, if any of you have seen that. It basically talks about if you don't have trust, if absence of trust is there as your first dysfunction, there's all these other things that follow, including fear of conflict, lack of commitment. All of these things are really destructive of teams. So I thought it was interesting to kind of, since we're trying to build trust and we're trying to decrease fear, that would be my argument. I also think that trust is generally missing or assumed in our change models. So I've tried to just summarise the models a little bit without, again, sort of going into too much detail. We've got ADKAR, we've got Kotter, Lewin's unfreeze, move and refreeze. But I would argue that there's something missing, and that is that in the first column, in a sense, we need some trust in the direction. So I need to trust that we're going in the right direction. Then I need to trust that the process is going to be fair, or that it's going to treat me well, or I'm going to survive it, or whatever. And also I need to trust in the outcome. So in a sense, all of those things could be considered separately. And in a sense, I think they're implied in what's sort of mentioned there in those models. What I'm suggesting is that that idea of building trust is related to the behaviours that managers exhibit, and that this is a way of thinking about what are those behaviours. So that's kind of where this was going.